This is Outperform Yesterday, presented by Kayaks. Quinn Hughes' overtime game-winning goal to beat Sweden had me screaming, USA! USA! So we're going to have a little fun here. We're going to preview USA versus Slovakia men's hockey semifinal. And I'm joined by 14-year NHL vet and co-host of the Post Up in the Blue Seats podcast, Brian Boyle. All right, Brian, thanks for hopping on with this, man. I'm glad you got the hat on because things are getting real for Team USA.
Yeah.
But before we talk USA, Slovakia, you've played this game at its highest level. You live it, you breathe it. To me, Quinn Hughes' overtime goal to beat Sweden was pretty sick. So from a player's perspective, what did you see? Talk us through his moment.
Well, without speaking for Quinn Hughes, the way I was looking at it was, and look, I'm not criticizing any of the national team coaches here, but there's some question marks and some red flags with Team Sweden's coaching in this tournament. I think the fact that they were a seven seed and USA had to play against them in this situation where it's not even a medal game was interesting because you think Team Sweden, this is a top team, top three, four, five team in the world. Why were they seventh coming out of the round robin or coming out of the preliminaries? It really was just a wild scene start to finish. Now they seem to have figured it out, and it obviously gave the Americans all they could handle. And you look at just how difficult it was to score against Jacob Markstrom. Go right to the moment with Quinn Hughes. And right to the moment I'm talking about, Gabe Landeskog. Tons of respect for Gabe Landeskog. He's the captain of that Swedish team. Unbelievable player. I don't think he should be on the ice 3-on-3. And I think Quinn Hughes, with the pressure being so high, was so cool during that moment to identify where am I going to attack. As soon as he got the puck, he attacked Gabe Landeskog, who is known for a lot of things, does a lot of things really well. I don't think defending 3-on-3 is the best position for him to be in an overtime. Quinn Hughes went right at him, make one little move, uses Landeskog as a screen. You'll see Boldy kind of cut through the middle as well during that play. I was just so impressed that he was able just to, have his heart rate low, be totally calm, cool, and collected, and execute on that play. And you look at their celebration, I'm jumping up and down in my living room, and they're it's almost like I don't know if it's anger, but it's like, all right, we're done with that one. Let's move on. And they have gone to Milan, with one goal, and that's the gold medal. And that was certainly a challenge for them prior to even the medal round.
It's funny because, professional sports, we always talk about when preparation meets opportunity. And that's the example of it right there. Everything you said about what Sweden's mishaps, as the athlete, we're not worried about that. What you said about him controlling the breathing, his heart rate, and burying that goal in that moment. That's what we dream about when we're kids, whether it's a Super Bowl or scoring a game-winning goal to beat Sweden and move on to the next round. And let's get into this next round because Slovakia is no pushover. All 25 members of Team USA play in the NHL compared to Slovakia's 6. But as you know, you're watching this tournament, Slovakia has beaten some pretty tough teams already. So take us in the locker room, in the film rooms. Like, what makes Slovakia so darn dangerous? And what's Mike Sullivan and Captain Austin Matthews saying to the guys about this being a potential trap game?
So what Slovakia has is that, and a lot of European teams do have this, and we've seen that now. Obviously, the Americans, the Canadians, they have it as well. But that pride playing for that national team, a lot of these teams, they go back when they have the opportunity every single spring and play in the World Championships together. They train together. They're brought up. The way their youth systems work are different. They're smaller countries, but they sort of identify who per age group is going to be in that pro team level, national team level, and they all kind of come up together. There's certainly a chemistry among them. There's certainly a lot of skill among them. They play the game a little bit different in Europe than they do in North America because of the dimensions of the ice and whatnot. And they understand if you can adapt and adjust a little bit to the smaller rink dimensions, you can be dangerous. And you have the added benefit that there's, not a whole bunch of information out on some of these players. There's not a book out on players. A lot of these Americans haven't played against a lot of these Slovakians. some have years ago. There are Slovakians that have NHL experience. You know, Martin Marincin is one. Solaric is another. There's a bunch of guys that on Slovakia that have played in the NHL, but they go over. They're playing high level hockey in Europe right now because sometimes it's like, do you want to go play in the American League another year, or do you want to go back home, make some good money, be closer to your family, etc. There's some good hockey players, and then you have the superstars. I think Juraj Slafkovsky, the kid who's playing for the Montreal Canadiens, has already played in the Olympics as a 17-year-old and 22. He dominated. He was the MVP of the tournament, and they won a bronze medal. Now, there weren't NHLers there, but Slavkovsky was 17 then. He's grown up a little bit now. He's older, and he's showing dominance at times in the NHL. He's the first overall pick for a reason, and they're going to lean on him heavily offensively. They have some other complementary pieces that can take a little bit of the heat off of him offensively. They have a number of defensemen that have significant NHL experience, and there's goaltending that if the goaltender plays well, these are one game elimination type deals. This is all game seven now. Everything is a game seven. So you have to understand that. Now, where Mike Sullivan and Austin Matthews have to prepare themselves is just that. Understand that this is going to be a significant challenge. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. So I think you look inward a little bit first. You have to play to your strengths. What makes you good? Why are you on this team? And Mike Sullivan will relay that message to each and every one of his players. What is your role on this team, and embrace it? And I think the U.S. has done a great job of that. They did it in the Four Nations last year, and they came up one goal shy in overtime, but they were right there. And that's best on best hockey. That's just what it does. There'll be an understanding. Everyone knows what their role is. They had that test against Sweden where they had the goalie pulled. They didn't get it done, quite frankly, and that was one player's mistake. It's I think it's just Brock Nelson, who's a phenomenal player and has played great. His stick was in the lane. He got caught puck watching. They allowed that pass from Raymond to go to Zibanejad. You had to tie the game against Sweden. These are details that if you get through them, and you win the game and you can survive another day, you can learn from that and understand, all right, we're better now. And you can never underestimate an opponent. I don't think they do that.
The margin for error just continues to get smaller and smaller as you go on from round to round. And you mentioned Slovakia's pride for their country and that team chemistry. We all look at that, and that should be respected because that can be better than talent at sometimes when teams come together. But we're American, like we're looking at this game like they can and they should be beat. So what would you say are their weak spots or even their vulnerabilities that Team USA can exploit?
I just think the overall talent pool, the understanding, the championship pedigree on Team USA is higher. I think there's a guy like a Matthew Tkachuk who's been to three straight Stanley Cup finals, who won two Stanley Cups, is just sitting there and letting everybody know, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, Jack Eichel, who can take over games both ends of the rink. Offensively, he will dominate. And defensively, you will get nothing done when he's on the ice because he'll shut you down. He is a Stanley Cup champion. There's players that Mike Sullivan is going to lean on and that understand what it takes to win big games because they can stay like a Quinn Hughes, for example, in that overtime. You can stay calm and cool and collected, still try to make plays. There's a very thin line between playing very simple and grinding out a hockey game and trying to be a hero and go try to do things on your own. You play together as five-man units, which the U.S. can do very well, and you can smother the Slovakian team. Really open their eyes to what you have as a group of 23 players that can just overwhelm them and have that attitude going into it. You can respect your opponent while still understand that you can demoralize them with just your talent level and your determination. That's what makes these great players in the NHL great. The margin of talent isn't, and if you played in high level of sports anywhere, like you got Brandon, it's not always the talent that separates the stars from the superstars or the good players. It's just that determination and that consistency. I think the U.S. has built their team very well. They have a number of players that compete like that, and they have that talent level to go with it.
And also the technique, the fundamentals. I tell, I work with, high school athletes all the time. And I'm like, you guys, you work the technique and fundamentals when you're a kid, then you lose it at some point because it becomes boring. Then you get to professional sports and you realize it's just a bunch of super talented people that stress the technique and the fundamentals in a big moment, and those are the ones that become elite. A lot of things. There's a lot jumping online. A lot of people chattering online about the tournament. A lot of people talking about the overtime format. A lot of these games in the tournament have actually gone to overtime. So, two-part question: did you expect that? And how has this 3-on-3 OT format kind of affected the outcomes of these games leading up to the semifinal?
So we've seen it a lot. And when the NHL adapted it years ago for the regular season, I thought, this is fun. This is great. Let's find a winner at every game. And shootouts are cool too, but shootouts are cool once in a while. If your team's going to a shootout 15 times a year, it's kind of like overkill. 3-on-3, just it's more ice with all this talent. You're going to find more ways to end games and finish the game. And I look, shootouts in elimination games where there's hardware on the line, I really don't like it. So I guess the next best thing is the 3-on-3. I love how the NHL playoffs work. It's 5-on-5, and you just keep playing 5-on-5 until somebody ends the game. In a tournament like this, where there's a number of games, there's not a ton of ice sheets. There's one building. Time becomes a factor. You need the games to end. IIHF is a different animal than the NHL. They're different rules. European hockey, there's different rules. There's all these different nuances to different leagues. So you just try to make it uniform for these tournaments. All the players have to adjust a little bit. I think it's fair. I think Skip Bayless realized that 3-on-3 was fun. Didn't realize that the NHL's been doing it for about a decade now, but that's okay. And it's whatever. I don't care. Eyeballs are on it right now, and it's exciting to watch. From a purist standpoint of the old school hockey player, I think the game's played 5-on-5. It should end 5-on-5. But it's certainly exciting. It was exciting U.S. Sweden. I love that finish, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and then it
right.
just adds an element of unpredictability to it. One
Absolutely.
guy could blow a wheel, which means like he loses an edge and falls down. All of a sudden, there's an odd man rush the other way. Anything can happen in those settings, and it raises the temperature to a point where you can't look away. You have to watch.
Must see TV. Absolutely love it. All right, here's that time where I got to get your prediction. You're rocking the real hat, so I need you to be real with me. What's your prediction for USA Slovakia?
I think it'll be a tight first period, and I think U.S. will end up sort of taking over in the second and win 4-1.
Oh, there we go. Ooh, 4-1. I love it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Well, Brian, appreciate you hopping on with this, man. This was fun, man.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it.